ultimately, it's up to you.
Welcome, everybody. What is it? It is 2024.
Of course, planting seed.
Welcome, everybody. What is it? It is 2024. We did make it to the new year. I hope everybody had a great new year, brought in the new year with family and friends. And it's a crazy time, especially now. And I'm very excited to see what is going to transpire in 2024. I know there's lots I still am going to be learning and new goals and achievements that I'm going to be striving for. And I hope you guys all feel the same way. So, yeah, I just like from all of us here at the One Great Work Warriors want to wish all of you a happy new year and start off that way, guys. So amazing. And what is really cool is I think this is a great way and a great topic to kick off our first show for 2024. And it's a great topic. I think it's going to be a great discussion as usual. And so, what we're going to be talking about in this episode is education as the solution. And I think this is going to be a really powerful discussion. And I'm thinking, Brandon, why don't you kick this off and dive into this topic?
Thank you, Rick. And thank you for all of the listeners who are tuning in. Education as the solution. So when we look at the word education from its etymological standpoint, from the word educo, meaning to lift up, like to draw out, to carry forth. So when I'm thinking about education, you're talking about, of course, planting seeds, and of course, you always want those roots to sprout. But one of the biggest things that I've come across when it comes to trying to educate people on what's going on is these fundamental thought forms as far as how they view the world. And if you view the world as from an objective standpoint, or from a just a solipsistic, relativistic, her mindset. And I think this is key because when it comes to as far as building, as far as her beliefs, and as far as how we see other forms of viewpoints and other her mindsets, this is going to be pretty much how we structure our world. So, you know, if you do have this solipsistic mindset, then you don't subscribe to any form of objective reality. You don't subscribe to any form of objective truth. You don't subscribe to any form of objective meaning, and you put more her meaning into relativistic standpoints, or into means of just perception and belief, more into like the whole microcosm, and just ignoring the macrocosm. And this is key because you really can't come to any form of agreement with someone if they are just stuck into like this solipsistic way of viewing the world. You really can't communicate because you can't come to a simple understanding of definitions. How they may say, well, your definition may vary from my definition, your meaning may vary from my meaning. That's what we hear from a lot of postmodernistic viewpoints. The changing of definitions, distorting and trying to confuse, her reality. Well, if this person only buys into a subjective reality, then of course, how they can make up and change the meaning of words at their whim, creating more confusion. So how can you ever really come to understand this person? How can this person ever really come to understand you? And of course, if you can't come to understand, you can't communicate. So if you can't communicate, with this person, then it's going to just lead to more antagonism. So, so hell again, solipsistic thought, just buying into, you know, um, just her relativistic mindset as the end all and be all. And there is a relativistic aspect, like to the individual, how we take in and view the world. But we do that still, from our own, viewpoints, from a shared, reality. So you aren't just creating the whole reality for everyone else, and I'm not just creating it for everybody else. Like we are all co-creating, and we all are viewing this objective world from our own individual lens. lens. So it's up to us to align our perceptions, because the perceptions are going to be what varies. We have to align our perceptions to this objective truth, because there is an objective world and you can view it, if you just sit down and close your eyes and see the objective, knowable, watchable patterns that exist, in nature. So, hell, just understanding that there is an objective world out there. There is such a thing as objective truth, objective reality. That's one of the most important things that we can, you know, educate people on, because without that, you can never get to natural law. You can never get toward, self knowledge, because then you're saying that there is no truth that exists and can never be known. Hell, we can just make everything up, as we go. So I'm gonna pass it on to Chris.
Right. Thanks, Brandon. Yeah, I thought it'd be good to kind of like talk about the difference of education and school to start off with. As Brandon pointed out, educate. It's like to bring out, to bring forth, and it makes sense that whatever culture or people we are, that we have a method to bring out knowledge so that the next kids, the next generation, can benefit from what we've learned, right? Because I mean, if you think about it, wherever people lived, they had to try the local food or growing food on the local land or dealing with the local animals, whatever the problem was, there's certain experiences gained. And if we didn't have the sense to tell the next generation, like, hey, watch out for those big hairy things with teeth, they'll bite you, then they got to go learn those processes all again every time. One of the really interesting things that does separate us from the animal kingdom or even the plant kingdom is the level that we have of necessary discovery in our process of becoming growing, right? From an infant, where an infant is fairly defenseless in this world, doesn't have claws, doesn't have fur, really can't defend itself, really can't find food without its mother. So if we don't provide some sort of education for the little ones, they're just bear food or wolf food or, food for the plants, So it's important, obviously. I don't think anyone could disagree with that, would see the logic in that. We have to educate, right, the next generations. But how do we do it is the question. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this episode talking about all the aspects of school that I don't like, because I can do that. And I think on a separate episode, I'll get real deep into that. But for the sake of what I want to say right now, I just want to put it out there that school in its current form, government school, is a method of indoctrination. It's a method of controlling people. It's a method of mental mind manipulation, like we talked about in the past. And the biggest aspect of that is that it's a belief system around it. And that's what I feel like what Brandon was saying really is the punch in the gut to me, is that once you get out of school, it takes a while for most people. For me, it did, to kind of like let it sink in that, hey, just because they said all this stuff and they made me remember these dates and numbers doesn't mean that they're true. We didn't do a lot of questioning and fact checking on these things. We were just told this is what you're supposed to accept on a lot of things. And it's taken me longer than the time that 16 years in school, to sort all that out and get rid of the bullshit and, restudy for myself a lot of these things. So unschooling ourselves, from the time that you get out of public school, you need to spend the next 15, 20 years of your life unschooling yourself. And if you haven't begun that process, I would challenge you to start back at the beginning and start asking some more questions that you didn't have the heart or the desire to ask when you were there, because it's a dogmatic belief system that is created to create citizens. And, I'll pass it off. Jerry, you feeling good next?
Oh yeah, that was hot, man. Hot potato. So like you're spot on. I mean, 15,000 hours to indoctrinate a human being. Why do you think it takes so much time to do that? Because we are powerful beings. Like our brains are the most powerful thing in the universe. So they're doing what they can to indoctrinate us, and then they basically map out our lives for us. Oh, you're good at this. We can put you here. You'll have the money. Don't worry about anything. But once you start opening your eyes or once I did that and started asking questions, I see it's like putting on the glasses. What's that movie called? um,
Oh, they live.
Yeah, they
like
live.
They
they
live.
live.
Great movie.
So I was seeing the world black and white or gray.
Obey.
Obey.
With the money, the I'm your God, written on it. So it's obviously, well, I think that it's been on purpose, the schooling system to dumb us down. And I know Richard Grove has or Charlotte Iserby wrote a book called Dumbing Us Down. I haven't read it, but I'm definitely gonna check that out. Pass it to Jim.
Thanks, Jerry. Yeah, you just reminded me of something I saw a few weeks ago about that movie They Live. It's driving down the Parkway, and it had one of those digital signs that said, um, "Don't be on Santa's naughty list this year. Obey the traffic laws." There's a New York State uh, public road sign. I was like, wow, they're just really just like saying it overtly now, but
Hmm.
obey. But anyway, yeah, and Chris, when you say, we need to start unschooling, sadly, I feel like there's so many people who don't even realize that they need to um unschool. I don't know how, people get to that point or like why any of us did. But, I'm glad we did. Um, yeah, so I thought maybe I'd approach this from a subject that I've been familiar with in like the last decade, which is permaculture, which is a big, I mean, I'll show you this. Oh, you can't really see it, but this like a university-sized textbook full of information, education, so people can fully educate themselves on it. But what I see a lot in like the people who are involved in this work is a lot of division. And like you said, like Brandon's talking about how people just get to make up um like their version of certain aspects of it. Like there's the ethics of permaculture, and ethics and principles are important. And people are divided over what some of the ethics mean. And they say, well, this is what it means to me. And so there's a lot of that kind of solipsistic, relativistic point of view stuff, where people, aren't really trying to get like they're just making it about them, like selfishness. And so it's kind of interesting. Like I've been doing quite a bit of research into it lately. And the founder of permaculture, Bill Mollison, was very authoritarian. And the more you like look at his work and see what he's saying, it's very clear. And so like the first couple of chapters of that book, he speaks about morality and that, and at the end of the book, he speaks about anti-authoritarian strategies. But everything in between, the 500 pages in between, is all about the external work. When people think of permaculture, they think about healing the landscape and restoring or getting some land and living off the grid. And a lot of times they're just in it for themselves. And that's truly not what it's about. It's about, humankind as a family, caring for the earth, caring for the people, and, creating a closed loop of systems of, caring for everyone. But, this is what I've been thinking about, and what Brandon's pointing to too is permaculture is not going to work without this understanding of morality, right? And so I've been really looking into this, and I see how important it is because I really do want it to work. Like it's such a all the like the work, the heavy the solutions have been that are out there to create the external. But we're like, oh, why isn't it working? Because always being blocked by these immoral authorities who won't let us do, like, they're always blocking us or not allowing us to do what the right thing to do. And that needs to be addressed so much more. So yes, the education is there, the external work is available, but until we educate ourselves internally about the consciousness, why is the consciousness so messed up, and get to the heart of that, get to the cause of that, and educate ourselves on that, that's then this external work can really make a difference. But we need to fix the internal to, or at least have the balance to have this balance of education. So something I want to put out there. Um,
Absolutely.
Pass it off to Rick.
Yeah, that's awesome points, Jim. And I think what you said is so powerful that the work first starts on yourself, and that's so important. I always think about that and say that because it's true. Is that we want to change things around us, but the work always has to begin with yourself, and I always say a part that I think a lot of people are missing. And stay away from the schooling system. The more I think about it, they sell it as that you're going to go into school and you're going to learn how to think for yourself and discover who you truly are, but really what they're doing is slowly indoctrinating you into their views and their agenda and what they want you to think about. And that's the kind of sleight of hand that I feel they're doing, is they're selling you a lie basically. And it's like you become it's your views are heavily influenced, and you basically become brainwashed to the system. And how many people do we all know that I've went to school for years and years and years and years? It's just this never ending. They're always doing another class. They're next thing you know, they're in school for 7 or 8 years with all these different classes and just accumulating debt basically, which is another whole topic. But it's just really, that's how they're selling the system. And I'm just checking my notes because like you guys made some great points, and I really like coming at it from this topic, because I think it's really gets to a lot of the heart of the problem. And so, but yeah, as I was saying, you come out of the schooling system not knowing how to not really knowing how to think, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean? Like you're not thinking for yourself. You're definitely not learning or applying the trivia method. I mean, that's so key. This is so key, and that's not what you're being taught. That's how true discovery and wisdom and all of the things we're talking about is gained. You have to first know the trivia method and apply it, and then that's how you're going to start breaking down and finding what the real stuff that we're talking about. And that's not taught at all. So it's just, I keep always saying that you have to care enough to want to find and seek out the correct knowledge, and it's not what they're teaching in the schools. It's not. You're not going to find it there. And you have to be willing to put the time in and be comfortable with tearing down all of your old, maybe for old belief systems that you have, that along the years have kind of stuck to you and you've picked up. And this is where we talk about the shadow work. This is where it really, I think, comes into play, is getting to know who you truly are, your true nature and your unique individual self that they start right from an early age tearing down and rebuilding you in their image, kind of thing, and what they want. So I think that's so important too, is you have to be willing to tear down old belief systems and learn along your journey of discovery about yourself, and about question, not a bad thing. I think questioning is amazing. And for me, I think about what did I learn in school and what did life teach me? And I think that life and being out in life and living life, that's your true classroom. That's I don't know, people call it the school of hard knocks, whatever, pick your name, but I think that's really where the teaching, that's where the learning comes in. And as long as you learn what we're speaking about, and you find this information and apply the trivia method and really learn about yourself, and then you as you learn this and build your foundation, then you're starting to live your life with responsibility, with a set of principles and accountability. and then working with others, which is so key. I think tech is dividing people in a lot of ways. Uh, so that's something to think about. And then it builds a strong character. And to wrap up, I think this is where parents are dropping the ball. Parents need to get their children out of the schooling system. They have to become more hands-on and learn this information, learn about objective morality and principles and all the truth and rights, everything that we speak about. And we listen and learn and hear from other people. The parents have to first care enough, as I keep saying, to learn this and apply it in their lives, and then they have to step up and start teaching their children and be way more hands-on than they are. It's crazy. Like now they have, when I was growing up, there used to be like, daycare, and then they would put you in there was junior kindergarten and then kindergarten. But now they got like pre-kindergarten and pre-daycare. It's crazy. When you start looking how young parents are giving their children away to somebody else to basically raise for a majority of the day. And that is just crazy to me. If I had a child, I would be so hands-on. I would want to be there teaching them and showing them and educating them that way, getting them out in the world and out in nature. And I think they're going to learn so much more value, quality, information, and what life is really about. I think that's our greatest teacher is nature and being out. And you have to care enough to want to do this. And I think parents, that's where they're dropping the ball. And a lot of parents probably don't like hearing that, but it's the truth. It's just the truth. The truth is what it is. It's truth. And get as hurt as you want, but it doesn't make it any less true. And a lot of parents are dropping the ball, and a lot of adults are dropping the ball in so many ways. So, there's no guarantees, guys. There's no guarantees. Life was never said to be easy. It was never said to be an easy journey. And so I really think that people just have to really start getting to know who they truly are and learning this and then applying it in their lives, and then that's when you can go forward and definitely teach your children
I
and
just
people
realized that
around you and get
Freedom
this
Under
message out.
Natural
So
Laws,
sorry, kind
the
of went on
website,
there for a while,
like
but I will wrap up with saying that we were
gone.
talking in the
What do you mean it's
before
gone?
we started recording that
Nobody
for
paid
me
for
that
it?
I went
Well,
to,
I
as you
thought
guys
I had
know,
it
a
updated or
Catholic school for
whatever,
the
but
first 8 years of my
it's
Turn
like I
education
off.
can't find my
in
way back to
Canada.
it. It doesn't
It's like
exist anymore or
1 to
something.
8 before you go to high school.
It has to be.
And
It wasn't
that
even
was
that
a
long ago when I
horrible.
went
I
in there
told
and
people
took
it was
out.
not a good time for me in the schooling system. I didn't fit in. I just was one of those people that didn't fit in. It was like I was polar opposites to most people in those classes. And then a lot of people get so stressed out when they go to high school. This big change is when a lot of people have a hard time. For me, I welcomed it. It was amazing because I finally found people that I had something in common with and I could at least learn and grow with. And it wasn't so polar. So for me, going into high school, at least at that moment, was very, very positive. It was a positive experience for me because I got out of that system where I was just it felt like suffocating to me. And I felt so out of place. And I think a lot of people, even as adults, do. How many people feel like they don't fit in? They don't belong. They're not, and that's really stops growth. It really can halt growth when you feel that constricted and that, that you're not part of it. And I think that's a great thing. Stand out on your own, especially if it's in truth and, all the things we speak about. I think that that's a great thing. It doesn't mean it's a bad thing, but yeah, for me, high school was a great thing. Was like that part of it. It was still very controlling. You're run by a bell. You get detention if you step out of line. You got, so it wasn't, in that aspect, it was just as bad as public school, but at least I felt I could start growing. It was the beginning of my journey, and I kind of found peers. So that's my thoughts, Chris. I mean, sorry, I kind of went on there a bit, but
That's good stuff.
yeah. So that's my thoughts, guys. You guys are all making great points.
Um, y- uh, Ricky kind of mentioned, people not understanding the truth. Well, when everyone's stuck into relativistic mindsets,
Mhm.
and how solipsistic, how they
For
can't,
sure.
how they can't see it. But Chris had mentioned the unschooling aspect, and how Rick had talked about the shadow work, and yeah, the self knowledge is a part of the self education too that needs to be understood, because you can't teach this information to anyone else if you haven't, of course, have went through this own journey, yourself,
Yeah.
or at least started this journey. And going within yourself, how knowing how your psyche works, how knowing hell about your traumas, how knowing hell about your fears, knowing about your turn ons, how your turn offs, how
Hmm.
learning about your beliefs and how your psyche is structured, how just learning how you can be manipulated.
For
That's
sure.
another thing that people don't really grasp is,
Yeah.
how easily that we could be, have manipulated. And when you learn how to, how to manipulate one person, then you can learn how to manipulate a large group of people.
Yep.
So he'll having that, he'll having that self knowledge. And
Yeah.
that's the
It
thing
was
is,
scary, Brandon. It was just scary. I don't mean to cut you off, Brandon, but sorry, I do apologize, but I just wanted to add in that, yeah, you're speaking of manipulation. And what's really scary is that once people learn this manipulation technique, it's encouraged in so
yeah,
many instances. Like that, that's the scary part, is that it's like you get a reward the
right,
more dishonest you are.
yeah, it just shows the culture, and the mindset that's really plaguing things, this whole taker mindset.
Hmm.
Oh, how we just want to control things, we're out of rhythm, we are still stuck in this internal schism, and that's really, what we're all pretty much are coming to the same, have this same conclusion, like this internal schism, and therefore we lack this internal knowledge, and then therefore, we externalize, we go to look for mommy and daddy, to these form of authoritarian, figures, educating others that all, man-made authority is an illusion. You still got
Yeah.
people who don't understand, have those basic, concepts, but because they haven't taken in that self-knowledge and, understand their own individual sovereignty and their own, individual power, then they're still in ignorance,
Hmm.
and the whole
Hmm.
self-knowledge part should of course bring you toward the teachings of natural law, you know, because you should be coming to understand these, concepts as you go within yourself. You start to learn how the self operates, and you start to learn how, how the whole can operate. And then, of course, you should come across the hermetic principles, and and all of those have wonderful teachings. And then really just start to go within yourself. Spend more time. Have within yourself, trying to fix and heal yourself, because you can't fix
Yeah.
this external world, have this macrocosm without doing the inner work,
Yeah.
and that starts with the internal self knowledge. That way, you can never really have really be get manipulated, and you'll always be the one who's in control. Because as long as we stay ignorant to that, man, we will always be manipulated by
Hmm.
it.
Good
And that's with
points.
any knowledge.
And it's kind of weird, Brandon, too, is that they, when you start doing the work on yourself, you'll hear here and there, like they kind of, what they try to twist doing the work on yourself and the shadow work and stuff, is that it's a selfish, you're selfish. I've heard people say that, like, oh, that sounds very selfish.
Yeah,
And
remember when we talked about ego,
yeah,
and
it's not
out there it's really common for people to think, ego means bad, you
hmm.
know,
Yeah.
and we really tried to dispel that myth. And there's so many myths that are tied in to this system we have in place. And I do want to throw out this, on the other side of that, I've met people who have had like one amazing teacher that really affected them and changed their life. And I know people personally, that are teachers, and I know some of these people that really make an effort to make a difference in children's life. And I think a lot of them do. And folks will justify schooling as a whole, or education as they call it, because there are good teachers that do reach children, and I don't want to deny that. And I'm actually very thankful to those individuals who choose to, try, extra hard, because the system itself is doing everything it can to prevent that. And it's doing it in a very subtle way. And I think the best way to kind of describe that is the like the ancient secret martial arts guy on the top of the mountain who comes, you come up to ask him for knowledge and he says, how can I teach you anything? I can't fill your cup if your cup's already full. And that's basically what happens in the system, is that they're giving you so much information, so much external storylines and facts and figures and numbers and things they want you to do, that you don't ever have the chance to think about why and who am I and all this and where do I fit. We were in the classrooms I were in, we were first grade already standing up there saluting the flag. They didn't even explain to us what these words meant. I think I told us in a past episode where I went home and I asked my parents, I'm like, what does that mean to pledge allegiance? That sounded kind of scary.
Yeah.
Like you shouldn't pledge allegiance to something if you don't know what it is you're pledging to. So they skip by all this stuff. And so I, as I said, I didn't want to just stick on pointing out all the problems with school. If you're still thinking school's great, then, you kind of missed the boat for what I'm going to talk about here, because what I want to talk about is what we should start educating people and the importance of education.
Yep.
Because like I said, we're born into this world kind of defenseless and vulnerable. And it's very important that we educate the next generation and create curriculum, learning opportunities for the people that are existing on the planet right now, especially at a time like right now where average guy like me has access to amazing publishing tools. There were many times in history they didn't even have typewriters. They didn't even have a printing press. So the only way you could get your voice out there or something you wanted to say is by yelling it. Or, only certain people knew how to use pens and have all the technology in order to write, candlelight, and the ink and all that.
Tipping in stone, even.
Right. So we have a
stone. Yeah.
Incredibly amazing opportunity, and it falls upon us a responsibility with that. And so, I started kind of thinking about what are some of the things that I think need to be taught from the beginning. And I think from the very beginning, one of the most important things that isn't talked about is the problem with belief. And belief isn't a bad thing, just like the ego isn't a bad thing. It has a purpose, right? Belief, and the way I've begun to think about it, is like a shadow of a thing. Belief is like the shadow of truth. It allows you to work your way towards the truth, right? Like a shadow of a person, it might lead you to where they're standing. But if you shoot at the shadow, you're not going to hit the person,
cool. Yeah,
and so, belief is important. It's like a signpost. It helps you go in a direction. You start with a belief and then you work your way. Well, I believe this. Let me see what I can find out about that. Let me test that. And then in a world where there are actual consistency, which is the world we live in, which is what we call objective, right? Objective truth. You get the same results over and over and over. And when you keep getting the same result after you've tested it with different beliefs or theories, then that's what we call science, right? So the science of being alive and testing beliefs until we understand truths is our everyday practice, right? That's training. Every day is training. So we want to try with young people to start explaining that there's this hermetic principles, right? In everything, there's parallels. We can learn allegorically from watching the animals or watching the clouds or meditating in our own mind. All the answers are available in all things, because this whole reality is hermetically sealed correspondence wise. You can find things within things. So, and then on the very real truth that they're hiding from us and keeping everybody from spending the time doing what we need to do as young children, especially boys and males, but there's no reason why it shouldn't be females too, is we need to start learning self-defense. The sooner the better. Mm-hmm. Really, the only right in this world is our right to our own body. I'll even go argue with people about land, whether do we really have a right to land or not. I mean, I think it's arguable, but we're born into our skin. And to me, that is the proof of what a right is, because I have it. And self-defense is me saying, try to take it. You can't take it. I won't let you. I won't let you because I know how to defend it. And school's not going to teach you that, because they don't really want you to know how, because they want you to think that you need them. or the Rothschilds or the whatever family that's controlling the textbooks at the time. They understand that power is keeping the lower people confused. They don't have knowledge. Then we have power over them. So the first thing that we want to do with children, one of the very most important thing is to help them understand, number one, that there is truth and you can discover it. And belief is a way to get there, but it's not there. And then how to defend your life and then those you care about.
Can I add
And
something
then
again, Chris, really quick?
yeah, go ahead, jump in.
About self-defense. I think what you're saying is so. I love the shadow analogy, by the way, too. That leads to the person. But anyways, I love the self-defense aspect of it too, because when you think, I think all of us can remember back in our school days, what do they teach people? Like if you get into a conflict and you defend yourself, they say both people are wrong. Both people are wrong. Even if you're defending yourself, they still say no. You're both wrong. And I think that they start teaching that at such a young age that even
Or
defending
mass
yourself.
punishment, right? Like
Yeah,
one student does something wrong, or this is what they do in the military too. This is a mind
yeah,
control tactic. It's like
absolutely.
you fucked up, so now everybody's going to suffer.
Yep.
Which, in a way, there's an element of truth to that in our reality, but they're using the worst aspect of it to trick you and to put pressure on you and guilt so that you do things
Sure.
because you're worried about what, like you were saying, the first schools you went to where you didn't really fit in.
Yeah.
Everybody else has kind of like an advantage over you, right? Because they fit in. And so, these kind of systems are putting you in a situation where you're kind of defenseless because you don't know where you stand and everybody else seems to have some power that you don't have. So in terms of what we want to do to make this situation better, train our children to defend themselves, train them to defend their family members, right? Train them to learn to use the trivium, to ask, gather all the information, put that information back and forth in your own mind and in discussion with people, and then be able to speak clearly on what you've discovered and what you know. And if we work from what we know, then we can actually care about truth, right? Like, so to live is to care is the way I put that, like living, there's a responsibility to know what is worth caring about and what's right and what's not. And that takes a certain amount of effort and initiative. If we're just being spoon fed the information, it's just taking it. It's just being a computer, there's no processing. It's just input, right? And you're skipping that processing. So then, like, it's really important to understand that every freaking thing you do matters and everything everybody else does matters. And this is an important aspect of natural law. And growing up, it's part of why kids play together and they're not getting enough time to play together. That's why animals looks like they're fighting when they're young. They're learning empathy.
Yeah.
By, oh, you put your claw in me a little, that hurt. How about does it feel when I do that back to you? Oh, that hurts, right? Okay, that's how we learn empathy. So children need to be playing and wrestling and playing with sticks and rocks and to feel these things. And we're skipping past that. That's the most important aspect of being alive and being human, is understanding that the things we do matter and that they affect the people around us. So living is the art of relationships. It's learning how we reflect off of the people, the things, the plants, and other life around us. And if we're not learning those things, we're skipping the very most important lessons. And these right here that I put, I think this is the most important lessons that need to be taught from age 0 up to like 16. And all that other crap doesn't even need to happen in there from my point of view.
This is nice.
We don't even need it. They'll, when someone gets interesting, they want to write something down, they'll learn how to do it because they're excited about it and they want to share it. When someone wants to learn about science, they want to solve a problem. So they test it and then they get excited about it and they want to know. The kids will discover things if we give them these tools, then they can build. That's the foundation from my point of view.
You summed that up perfect in that one slide, Chris.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Really nice. Really good. I love it.
There's an idea here because hopefully the people watching this will get the idea to educate others, especially the children. Well, ourselves first and foremost, because if I don't educate myself, how am I going to educate a child?
Right.
It's pointless. So as you mentioned, like Rothschild, morality, truth, these are all things to look into. Shadow work, talking about selfish, that's ignorant. Like for me, I putting the seed in someone's mind is crucial because that seed was implanted into me, and slowly but surely it's growing. And now I'm more confident. I can, like, even if I'm 1% more confident than I was last year, that's growth. It's
For sure.
going to happen, dude. Like I'm going like, and once I get that growth, it feels good. Like, would I prefer to be ignorant like a year ago, or I wouldn't even say that. I would just say like I prefer the way I am right now because I'm more educated, and I know that I want to educate others. That way, we live in harmony. And without education, it doesn't seem possible. So this is why this is important, why education matters. And these are things like the brain is the most powerful thing. I want to control it, not let it control me. Oh, go eat that popsicle or put on some calories, be fat. Don't research, play PlayStation, die. Like there's no legacy. There's That's a waste of time. I'm here to make the best out of this existence. Every second matters, and I will put the truth out there and nothing else. The truth is, I want to be educated, and that takes questioning. So I'll question my own, what's it called?
Conclusions,
Question
maybe?
everything.
Conclusion. Yeah, everything.
Question everything. Oh,
Yeah.
do I have it wrong by any chance? Let me look into it. It's like inspecting, like in the military, they have inspections. So if, like, let's just say an officer would come in every morning, look at the racks, meaning the beds, make sure it's squared away, it's clean. Bed is made, pillow, 45-degree angles. It's not made a mess. So when they would come in, they're gonna look at the picture, they're gonna see the bed. If I were to tell them it's made, don't look into it, I made it, you don't have to worry about it. Like, and they're like, yeah, okay. But in reality, I didn't even make it. I'm just pretending I made it because I'm lazy and I just don't want to do it. Like, it's a lie. And if that lie keeps perpetuating it, there's no discipline. So we're all disciples of something. Like, I'm either a disciple in educating myself or in becoming ignorant. And just once I got the taste of the education, I'm not letting it go. And there's gonna be fallbacks, mistakes. I'm gonna feel sorry for myself, perhaps.
Mhm.
But that's when I pick myself up, keep going, because humans, I have the capacity to be anti-fragile. So let's say someone attacks me, guaranteed I will be stronger after that event than ever. Like I will be smarter, stronger, be able to survive better. So come at me, bro. Like life, I'm here to fucking attack life and enjoy it because life isn't fucking doom and gloom. It's what I make it. And I want to live in a place where I have friends, family, nobody taxing me and coercing me. And it takes education. Every education is everything. What are you like? What am I striving for? I need to know about it. If not, then I'm just wasting away. And so what's the point, dude? Like education is It's everything. It's can underestimate it. Can't emphasize it highly enough.
Yeah.
And
What scares me so much, Jerry, is what you're talking about. When I think about that is stagnation. Like people that don't learn, they kind of get set in their ways and they just don't really grow. They're like a stagnant pond, and I just like I would never want to be there. To where
Cup's
you're,
already full. Can't even fit
yeah.
another drop.
Can you? I just can't imagine
exactly.
that. Like just not even willing to look into things and
But that's largely fear, right? Because
it's all fear. I think it's
we get
all fear.
accustomed
It's all
to
fear.
the world where they've created all this structure and supplied
Yeah.
all the answers, and it's either A, B, C, or D or E, and so
Mhm.
someone starts throwing other letters out there. They're like, "Whoa, they didn't tell me about
And
that."
that's the thing about the schooling system. It's like a prison because they don't keep you like the. If I were to have a school, I would like to be outdoors for most of the time,
Oh, that'd be awesome.
just
Yeah.
in sucking in all that
Some of
energy.
the Waldorf schools have a little more of that tendency. There are some schools that, they try that, right? Like
Three.
put the kids outdoors more, and I think that is better, you know?
We would do that the odd time in the summer for the if the classroom got too hot, the teacher would say, "Let's go to the big tree outside." We'd do our class outside, and you could just see the whole atmosphere change of the group. Like it was just different. You were out of that room and you were actually in like sitting outside. It was amazing, and it just I think what you guys are saying is that would be a great thing to do. Like bring it outside. I would love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and for Jim, that's huge too, right? Like why
Yeah.
wouldn't we be teaching him how to grow food or
Yep.
take care of animals? Isn't that survival? Like what could be more important than learning how to survive and
Yep.
feed your family? Why don't we start there? Go ahead, I didn't mean to interrupt you. You're rocking it,
Well,
Jerry.
I was
Go ahead,
Jerry's
Jim.
yeah,
throwing
Jerry.
heat.
It's on
what you
fire.
got, Jim?
Well, I've just been sitting here thinking about, my children and that and how Rick brought up, kids in school and all that. And like I know all five of us here, we were schooled, right?
Mhm.
And we spoke about unschooling and earlier, and that's what Jerry's talking about too. Like he's going through that process of unschooling. I've been going through it too. And by the time my kids were ready to go to school, I had just discovered read like John Taylor Gatto, like his books, Weapons of Mass Instruction and Dumbing Us Down, and getting to learn about like the manipulative nature of the schooling system. But I wasn't fully, I'm still working on it, but educating myself, right? But as we're talking about this of how important education is, it's like we can't let the kids get schooled then, right? Like Chris, you're talking about homeschooling, right? We can't let the kids get schooled or then they're gonna have to get unschooled, right? Between those
Yeah.
ages, by the time they're 8 years old, it's already too late.
That's
Mm-hmm.
hard to
But
change.
and
It's like
so
a bad habit. Like a bad habit, trying to
It's
change
like
a
three
bad
steps
habit.
back.
Oh, yeah.
And
And then you got to work your way through those three steps again to go anywhere.
Yeah.
Because you have parents that have children that want to go to public school, so it's like, all right, but if it's without their consent, then I think they shouldn't go to school,
Mhm.
public school.
Yeah.
yeah, so for me, to be open and honest, like I mean, I know like most people in this natural law community, they even say you don't love your kids if you send them to school. And I could see that. Um, I understand where they're coming from. But my kids go to school and you know, it's a challenge when their mother isn't on board. Like I feel like it's the most important thing is to have the education if before you have children
Great point. Yeah.
because that's what happens with most people. Like I didn't really start understanding moral relativism until like 2 years ago.
yeah.
That's a
You know,
great point, Jim.
my kids know what moral relativism is. They hear all this stuff from me. Like they're hearing everything that I can possibly get them to know. And sometimes I think that, they're tuning me out and I try my best not to like, you know, make them not want to hear me, but they hear me. They are hearing it. They're getting it, but at the same time, I'm dropping them off at school every morning, and I'm not happy about it. Um, but it's like uh, they're in 11th grade. They're 16. They're twins. So, a year and a half left to go. But it's like they're gonna finish. They're so indoctrinated already. I've seen them get schooled, and um, I feel like the best I can do is encourage them to homeschool their kids at this point, like but and show them like think about how they can unschool. Because by the time they really were by the time they were 8 years old, I still was straight up like I was even an atheist at that point. So um I needed a lot of unschooling myself. Um and I guess the point I'm trying to make is it's important for parents before people become parents to have this education or unschool first, because it's like you only got like fucking 4 years before the state's trying to grab them. So
That's yeah,
before you're
yeah,
throwing them
yeah.
in the system. So that's
Even as I was
gotta be the
saying, even
biggest thing
younger.
is
Yeah,
you got to get the parents educated before they send their kids into the school.
yeah.
So they can't even get schooled. So that's got to be the biggest challenge. But
Absolutely.
Breaking that cycle. Yep. We got to break that cycle.
Hmm.
Because
yeah,
because the school is just going to decay the child's imagination. It's going to decay the child's creativity. And then because the parent went through, how the schooling system, its creativity, how was decayed. So it can't think of another situation. It can't think of homeschooling. So, how we've got to get back because real education is supposed to pull out that creativity. It's supposed to, pull out that mindset to flourish, you know,
Yeah.
that creative outlet, that creative spark. That's
And
what
what's to build on that, Brandon? What because you're talking about creativity and how they're taking that away. It's kind of funny. Like years ago in the schooling system, they were starting to they sell it as they have to make budget cuts. And what did they cut? What classes did they start cutting? Art class.
yeah, art
Oh,
classes, yeah, music classes,
yeah.
yeah,
So what are
band.
they doing? Like they're not cutting math or all these extra things that you're never going to really need. No, they get rid of the creativity aspect, all the things that will make you unique and explore who you really are.
Yeah.
That's very
And
telling.
also the teamwork games, right?
Another one, yeah. Oh, for
All the
sure.
after school sports
Yep, gone.
became like you got to pay for them or you got to
Yep,
be part of a league, and they're not encouraging you to learn to work as a team and
yep,
excel as a group.
yep. Oh, and auto shop was another one that they got rid
Yeah,
of. It's like,
yep. I remember auto shop. Yeah,
yeah. So it's like,
And
look
I
what they're
wanted to
taking away.
bounce off what Jim was saying too, because my kids are fully indoctrinated through school. One of them's out of school now, going to college. But I had the same story you're talking about, Jim. By the time I came to the realizations, it was far too late um, for me to pull them out. They were in love with it. And actually, my kids are different than I am in that they both were the type of personality that they did really well in school. My younger daughter gets perfect grades, like A's. She'll get mad if she gets an A minus. She's good at it.
yeah.
And so
Same.
me talking about quitting, seems pretty ridiculous to her. And I think there are a lot of good things that she gets out of it. I'm not
Mhm.
saying that's not true. But on the whole, um, she believes what they have to say on the whole, in a general sense, way over anything I have to say. And to me, that's, it's kind of a sad state when your own child, you know, believes somebody else before they believes you, and you're the person that was with them every day, raising them, bringing them food, and
Yeah,
showing up
so
consistently, and yet they're going to believe these strangers and take
you
their word
listen to
for it.
them more. Yeah.
That's a good motivation to just put the word out, make even better content. Just keep pushing it out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
the school indoctrination is the cult indoctrination. So they go through the same techniques that cult members go through. So that's why how the individual will believe the school narrative or had a teacher before or over the parent because they are involved in the schooling cult.
Yeah. I wonder though if if teachers start to educate themselves about all the things that we talk about. Like as Chris was saying, you really remember a teacher that was powerful and changed your life. And there was one teacher in my when I was in grade 1 to 8, there was one teacher that really stood out. She was amazing. And I still think about her, like when I think about schooling at that time, you could tell she cared. Like she really loved to go to work. And you could just tell, like that was her thing. She loved it, she cared, and she was very open to having discussions. And that's if just imagine the power if teachers started to learn what we're speaking about and then applying that and if they would let them even teach this in the
Yeah,
class.
they wouldn't be able to do it in the existing structure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. But imagine if they could. Wow. Wow.
Once you break the like the protocol, the narrative, and you start actually like engaging and asking questions, then you're gonna bring up red flags because they all have
Oh, for
their
sure.
they all have
Yep.
their curriculum or their agenda that has to be force fed. Like with the whole public
All messed
indoctrination.
up.
Yeah.
Well, and think about the very structure of the whole thing. The foundational structure is you're coerced into being there with people that are not of your choosing.
Hmm.
Every parent who's had a child in school has had one experience at one time or another where there's some other kid that's either bullying them or acting out in a way that's inappropriate. And their child is now being forced to be stuck in the same room with some other child that, who knows whether they weren't cared for or traumatized, why they're acting the way they're acting. But, like I would have never wanted to put my child in a closed room with some stranger in charge when there's a kid there that has clear emotional problems or is very damaged and needs like some kind of special care. They shouldn't be just shoved together. And like this whole thing of shoving people all of different races together, if people don't want to be together, don't force them. That's going to create problems. I don't care what race someone is, but why is it an issue? It became an issue because they're forcing them to go together. And if what's interesting too, if you look at that time in history when they were trying to integrate like black kids into white schools, what they would do is they would put one black kid in a whole school of white children.
That's
And you
crazy.
think that's not going to cause a
Yeah.
problem? That most of the parents of those white kids were partially racist, or all of them, a large percentage of them probably were. So of course there's going to be a problem. That's like mixing, you're trying to force things together. That's like, combining chemicals without knowing how they're going to react.
Yeah.
The whole thing is a setup from the very beginning because you're on the precedent that it's okay to force people to do things without their consent.
Yeah. And to build on what you're saying, Chris, we were talking about before we recorded, and I was saying, like, I'm thinking back to my early schooling, the whole social media aspect now is like that. I couldn't even imagine how much worse it would have been if there was this social media system that we have now that kids have to deal with. I didn't have to deal with that. I went home and it was all good. In the summer, it was all good. I had that sanctuary at least. But now, if you're somebody that doesn't fit in, I mean, now they can make a YouTube channel about you, a TikTok, they can make Facebook. I mean, that's such more piled on to an already struggling person. I couldn't even imagine what some kids go through.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's got to be so hard for some people, even
Yeah,
adults.
just to harp on the social media, like everybody, or not everybody, but a lot of people go to Facebook, TikTok, because that's the best social media app out there. And that's why it takes education for people freedom minded to build better alternatives.
Yeah.
Yeah, the algorithms on all these sites are built for negativity. You're going to get more views if you create an argument and you
Mhm.
say something divisive. I've tested this over and over. If you're trying to teach moral law, no one's going to see your videos. Very few
But
going to be
Oh
much
yeah.
more.
put a really catchy title though, and watch how many people find it. You
Yeah.
know, put some fear in there, and it'll go.
Just shows, man, like the whole solipsistic, mindset is so real. Like everyone just, just going around and their beliefs are fighting everyone else's belief, and it's just become a world of, like like how can I impose my beliefs on everyone else? And it's just like all of these little small battles, like these small chaotic battles, because we can't agree on anything.
And the other thing that happens is people get so invested in their area of study. Imagine if you went to like school to become a doctor or an engineer, where not only did you go through the school and you got all your good grades and you played a sport maybe even to get into the college and to get, you get through college and you do your doctorate study another 3 4 years, and now you're getting these bigger paychecks finally, and you're all this debt. Now for you to question any of those foundational beliefs they put in your head is so difficult because you've
It's your
invested so
identity.
much
Yep.
time of your energy and who you are become into that learning process, and so it's that much more difficult to separate yourself from it and look at it objectively.
And
Yeah.
even if you do question it, then what do? They punish you. Even if you start coming out of it and you start questioning and speaking out, you remain an example of.
Yeah.
Right, or you might lose your license if you're a doctor or a nurse or a
yeah.
therapist because
You will have to
you're not
question your
following
whole
the rules.
identity. Yep. You will have to
Yep.
question your whole identity of who you are and everything, how you thought was real. And that's the
They do
people.
this.
So that's goes. I was gonna say that goes back to Chris's, whole point about believing, instead of thinking that, that's what schooling is about, is to get people to believe, and then they do, and then they don't want to be challenged by their beliefs, even though that's what's
Yeah, it's
gonna
like
get us.
they're teaching you to take the fish rather than what we're trying to tell you is to teach people
Yeah.
to learn how to fish.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want
Yeah.
you to teach someone to learn how to fish, right? Because otherwise they'd teach you how to get information on your own and how to question
Right.
information. But what they want you to do is
Exactly.
learn how to get in line, and when it's your turn, then you get your fish.
Yeah. Just
And you'll
smart
be
enough to
grateful.
obey. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll be thankful that you even got anything.
In their bubble.
What about these terms that, because they're not like ordinary everyday words, moral relativism and cognitive dissonance. What if we could make them, as part of the education, more mainstream so people really understood what they meant? And
That's
then
the
they could
goal.
ask themselves questions about, uh, be honest with themselves, like, well, where do I fit into cognitive dissonance or morality? And how do we get that really? I mean, that's what we always try to do. Like you said, we put it out there. Nobody watches it, but
Well, people do
um,
though. Not enough, but people
but
do. And that,
but
where you're going, Jim, is exactly where I want to go next in this conversation is this is why we're doing what we're doing. This is what we're
yeah,
doing.
how do we make those terms mainstream?
Keep saying it.
Yeah. We have to keep repeating,
Yeah.
you know,
Creativity.
yep. And more voices, like he'll have to amplify, and more voices have to amplify. And then that voice will
Yeah.
get more, united and louder and louder and louder to the point to where there ain't no choice but to not hear it.
That means you listeners,
Yeah.
we need your help on this.
Like
If
that's
you
the whole
guys aren't
point of
bringing up
education.
these topics, why not?
Yeah.
Like, if I was to go like become a celebrity or something and just go like on a TV show and just, I don't know, do something wild, like get butt naked and have like a sign that says government is slavery, like something like that might spark some interest. But just putting out being the true media is what's gonna get the message out there to others in the mainstream.
Yeah. How does something become viral? More people are out there saying it, putting it out there. It's numbers.
Yeah, that's why Rick does his show every week, and that's why every Thursday I do the End Evil podcast. I see that what I'm attempting to do is to educate those who might listen to what I have to say, that living is the process of learning and understanding natural law. Natural law is the consequences of our behavior. It's the inherent built-in reality that we live in. It's the ocean that we're swimming in, and you can test it. You can do things and then you can feel the results. And we see the cumulative results of a lot of people being dishonest over periods of time. And what that's done is educated the public into false belief systems. So what we need to do is live and learn and teach this process of natural law and find different ways to describe it, be creative, keep trying different things, and keep bringing up the topic whenever possible, wherever possible. And that process of educating ourselves, because I got to say, for me, like you were saying, Jim, 10, 12 years ago, I was just on the tip of coming to these recognitions and starting to realize that there were words I could use to communicate these deeper meanings, to the point at now where I've practiced saying them over and over and over, and we're doing it right now. Every time when I have a conversation and someone brings something up, boom, it's right there. A million conversations I've had on this topic. I'm ready to expand on it. Just the other day, some people came to my door and they knocked on the door and they wanted to talk about their religion. They wanted to share, their church message to me. And I said, oh, wonderful. Let's have a conversation, And I'll tell you what, those people left my porch with some new thoughts in their head that they'd never really thought of before. I could see it in their eyes. They were bewildered. They didn't know how to answer some of the things that I said. And they hadn't really considered those things before. Maybe not, but I'm trying. And that's what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, you got them thinking. That's awesome.
I love
I
it.
freaked this woman out once in a parking lot. She came to me with like this newspaper of this kind of like religious cult, and I started asking her some of the questions, and I scared her. Like she was so scared because she was like, "Whoa, I never thought of this before."
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Um,
might be worth mentioning, like, it's not just about, like, in my opinion, putting out content online. It's also about talking to individuals and, my relatives and stuff, people out there on the street.
Well, that's training too. Like I was saying, all life is training. Everybody you're talking to, you're training yourself. Well, how far can I go with this topic? What can I say that will not offend them and put them so far out of the conversation that we can't keep going on it? And you got to test it. I don't know how many family dinners you have to ruin until you learn that balance. Each of us are battling that, and that's the process of how does someone learn? Are they going to learn by me shoving it down their throat? Or are they going to learn by me asking the right question and making them consider? It depends on the person and the situation.
Get
That's what
them
we're
asking
practicing.
questions. Yeah, get them asking questions is amazing. That works because you're so right, Chris. Trying to hammer them with it, which I think we all do at the start. It's like I'm going to teach them, and then you just go right at them, and you learn very quickly that most people shut down. They don't.
yeah,
That does not work. You have to get them thinking, and that's the way to go. For me, it's great practice because some of my relatives, boy, those are some tough nuts to crack. But
Yep.
it's a work. It's
Having multiple approaches.
yeah,
Yep. We all learn in different ways. So, yep, one approach may work for someone else and another approach may work for somebody else.
for sure.
So, yep, now that is definitely going to help. Not everyone's going to learn, from beating it over the head, how like y'all say, and some people may learn it from, the soft-spoken ones. So, yeah, just got to have many different styles and flavors.
Yeah.
Just putting out the same message. That's really what matters.
Yep. Like we always say, in your own unique, creative way. Like there's so many ways you can talk about this or present it. Doesn't have to be always like I think people think it's got to be a podcast or a radio show or presentation. Yeah, those are amazing tools, but they're not the only tools in the chest.
For me, podcasts was such a major breakthrough. And that's why, I decided I needed to become a podcaster. Because during that period of time in my life, I was working in a job that had a lot of repetitive aspects to it, and I was bored, But I started putting my little earphone in, and listening to podcasts and just all day long, hours and hours and hours of information. Remember listening to Tragedy and Hope, like 11, 12 hour podcasts, Mark Passio's 4 or 5 hour presentations, listening them to two
Tons
times
of that.
around,
Yep.
3 times around sometimes until I really sunk in. And that's what worked for me. I had some major realizations, and then there was some timing in my life too, where I decided I was having some health issues. And so it was forced to clean up my act and abstain from drinking and take time off smoking and uh, eat better and start getting more exercise. And I found myself in this place where all of a sudden I was getting all this information just flowing from the universe, not even from books or podcasts. It was just coming. Boom.
Yeah.
And so that's a possibility too. I think in order to get yourself in that place where you can get those kind of connections with the source, you have to spend some time doing the self work, cleaning up your act, giving up some things. All this is shedding away things we don't need. Learning is more about getting rid of crap than it is about gaining. People always think of wisdom as getting something. You could know all the knowledge in the world, but if you can't practically apply it to your life or your next day or your next moment, it's all shit. And so wisdom doesn't mean knowing a bunch of stuff and having a bunch of details in your head. Wisdom is action. Wisdom is how you apply what you've thought about and processed into the next moment or the next day. And that's what we're doing with these discussions. We're trying to educate ourselves by the conversation and offering that opportunity for other people without any type of coercion.
And I think about it, Chris, too, is like sometimes to move forward, you have to take a step back. If that makes any sense. Like I find myself
You
doing
got to pour the cup out so you can refill it.
yeah,
Get
and that's
get a better scope, to get a
yeah,
better viewpoint.
that's so, and that's fine. I think
Perspective.
people think if they're taking a step back that this is a negative thing, and for me, it's not. It's very powerful to move forward. You sometimes have to take that step back and take some time and really focus in and really put some thought and care into it, and then move forward. And then you're moving forward even quicker.
Yeah, if any of you guys want to share, like I think that'd be a great way to kind of close up here, is share some of our realization moments and try to pinpoint maybe what were some of the things that helped us realize some things, or anything you guys want to talk about to close, but that's an idea.
Um,
Yeah.
Jim, you can go.
Okay. Yeah, what really helped me was I stopped drinking. Chris, you're talking about eating healthier and you die like yeah, beer is a bad frequency to be on, right? So I eliminated that and I was able to receive uh my consciousness was receiving much better information uh and get me on a better a higher frequency. So I that's important. A lot of people are in a fog of addiction and things like that. Don't even realize that's blocking them. Just another thing, in my life, I was able to do quite a bit of traveling. And so when it comes to educating yourself on like humanity, really getting to know people and, you know, I come to find that before I traveled, I didn't like people as much as I did until I did travel. And I only knew what people said or what this like school taught me about people in other countries, but you can't truly know unless you go over there yourself. If you travel internationally or even within the United States, and then you really get to know people by traveling. So that's a such an important education,
It's
and
perspective too, right?
for sure. Um, I think a very important thing to educate ourselves on is indigenous wisdom. Um, these people are still here. These people are still living the way that we evolved to be. And there's people like who have just been totally overtaken but their wisdom still can be learned from. And um as far as living with, nature. And lastly, as far as school is concerned, I think the greatest school is Earth, right? Earth is a school. We all come here to learn. And look at nature, like as I mentioned, permaculture in the beginning. One of the things well known as let the forest be your teacher. Let's look at ecology and ask questions around that, like, the balance of nature and stuff. There's a lot to be learned from that. So, yes, thank you guys. It's a great conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's it. And can I just add in, just to build off what you're saying, Jim? I was very much similar with drinking too. That was a big step for me. Was getting conquering that, and getting stopping the drinking, and then really starting to focus on my health. That was a big one. Like really be, working. And I still struggle with it. I mean, not drinking. I got that one licked, but definitely so, I gotta start. I try to eat better. And this is the journey I've been on and finding what works for me. So that's the one thing was, yeah, definitely stopping drinking was a huge one for me. And then definitely a big thing for me was like my health. And that's probably because of the condition I was, basically living with my whole life. And that is starting to really learn about how it matters, like how you what you're putting in your body and how you're treating your body really affects everything else. It affects how you feel, your moods, how you process information. It really starts with people need to start focusing in and starting to get more healthy, because like you see people's diets now, a lot of people's, I'm not saying everybody, but wow, like you look at what people are calling food now. Ooh.
Don't eat the school lunch and don't
Don't
eat what they're serving at the hospital.
Oh yeah, like God, I remember when I was in the hospital and they gave me something they called scrambled eggs, and it was like rubber. Like I think you could have dribbled it like a basketball. It was just like, okay, this is not good. So yeah, don't eat the hospital food.
or old people's home.
Exactly. So yeah, that was a big thing. And then just really doing that inner journey, which I do every day. I check in with myself every day. And that's a big thing that I am constantly working on myself, and I'm willing to put that work in. And I make mistakes like everyone else, and I fall off the path, and but the more you do it, you correct yourself more quickly, and you start to realize sooner that you're kind of veering off, because we are getting bombarded constantly. From the time you're up till you go to bed, they're trying to nudge you. It doesn't take much to nudge you off that path and get you going into the weeds, kind of, so they say. So the more work you do on yourself and educating yourself, you start to pick up quickly what's you're better at gauging it and then correcting the course. So yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to add in at the end, guys. And thank you, because this was a great conversation, especially for the first one for the new year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great talk. And then the first thing I think everybody should throw out is the fucking food pyramid.
Yep, exactly.
And
Yeah, I remember that.
yeah, real quick, before we go,
Shit.
before we go, is remember when learning anything is you got to have patience. You got to have patience with yourself. You got to have patience, have with your teacher, because
Yeah,
you are the student and you are the teacher. So you got to have patience, because you're not going to learn this stuff overnight. You're not going to learn anything overnight. So always remember it's going to take time to truly
exactly.
learn and to truly educate yourself. So
Very cool, Brandon.
yeah, won't be learning this
Patience.
stuff overnight.
Take the time it
I'll,
takes.
I'll hop on real quick. So, like, never give up. I, in the flip of a switch, I can understand something so massively important, such as creating the one great word. I mean, I can't emphasize it highly enough. Like, I can't highly emphasize it enough. I can't say it enough because once like I understand what is going on, and this is where my focus is now. And just like that, I have total respect for myself, and I want to be the best teacher I can be. I'm actually excited about this. So 2024 is going to be a great year. I love you guys. I see the growth, and yeah, love is the answer, bro.
Yeah.
Lo-
Yeah, and be kind to yourself too. Like, geez, like Brandon was saying, don't be, you're gonna falter, you're gonna make mistakes and that's fine. It's part of growing. So
Stay the course.
stay the course, man. Yeah, and
You can do
All
it too.
right. It's been a wonderful evening. I always love hanging out with you guys. My mind's all full of wonderful thoughts, and I'm sure our listeners are as well. We'll be back in another few weeks. End Evil podcast will be running this Thursday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, and we'll be playing this episode. And I guess if you're watching it, it already happened. So it's like now like a time warp problem here. No, much love, folks. Everybody gets everything they wanted on this subject. Go ahead, Jerry.
Oh, I just want to say peace.
Oh, peace. That's a
Yeah.
good thing to say. Peace, love, but freedom, most importantly.
Yeah. Peace out.
Ladies and crew. Later on, guys.